that time of the week when we give our academic tip. And this week we're talking about community helpers. Now you might ask yourself, all right, wait a second. Why are we talking about community helpers in conjunction with academic? Because when we talk about academics here, we're not talking about taking the place of a curriculum for school. We're talking about supporting the way the child interacts at school, the things that they need to be doing at school, filling in the blanks of their stepping stones, and making sure that the child can function within the school environment. And one of the things that we know when a child goes to school is that they need to be aware of people in their community and who is helpful in an emergency. What we don't want to do is send a child to school and have them not understand what a fireman is or what a policeman is or what an ambulance worker does. We want them to understand the people in the community, including teachers, including principals and staff at school, so that they have a beginning understanding of how to respond in cases of emergencies, who to look for help, to understand authority, very important that they understand that. So we start with identifying who the community helpers are, and you begin to see why that's so important for someone who is of school age. Now, do you wait till they're of school age to talk about community helpers? No. We can start with children who are the age of even 2, working on who community helpers are by pointing at them out in the community. But I have some tips for you in terms of when we start to identify community helpers. Now, obviously, we can work on this in a natural environment way, right? That if we're at a carnival and we see a policeman there, we can take a child up to, sometimes they have like an ambulance there or they have a police car, and the children can go and sit in the car and push buttons and talk to the firemen and do that kind of thing. Absolutely. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Whenever you are at a community event that is not an emergency and you see community helpers there, I encourage you to walk your children up and meet them and let these people be demystified so that they're not terrifying. But we can also work on this in a DTT way at home to sort of pave the way for those natural environment moments. You're going to want to have some kind of, we call it stimuli, something that you can use to refer to different community helpers. Now, you might start with 2D pictures, and you can get these on the internet. You can go through and just go to Google and search and put images and put firemen, and they have cartoon pictures of them, and maybe if that's what your child reacts to, you can start with those. Eventually you would want to move to real life pictures. And one of the things that we did along the way was we went to events, and my son was always interested in the camera. He still is interested in the camera and likes to take photographs. And so went and he would meet the policeman and we would take the picture. And we added those to our stimuli. You notice on here that it says vary the stimuli. You don't want to show one picture of one, like when you get to chef, for instance, when we're identifying who a chef is. You don't want to show one picture of Gordon Ramsay and that's a chef and that's always a chef, and you show 8 pictures of Gordon Ramsay, because what will happen is the child will learn that Gordon Ramsay is a chef, not that there are chefs and that they all cook. So make sure that you vary the stimuli. We've talked a lot this week about generalization and how we want our children. We can't show a picture of every policeman in the world, right? But that's why identify the features. We want to be able to show several different policemen. Maybe, even in our community, we have sheriffs that wear brown and we have policemen that wear blue, right? And we can point out the features of those. Well, they have a badge and they have, some of them have the little walkie-talkie thing and they are wearing a uniform and so on and so forth, so that we can help to identify what it takes. By the way, with our son, one of the things that we always taught was so that they could tell, we we live in Los Angeles. And so there are times when we have been out into the world and, literally around here, you can walk up and sometimes they're shooting something. So we've talked about when is it a costume for a policeman and when is it a real policeman. And the big difference is the badge heavy. So that if he's someplace and needs help and somebody comes up to him and says that they're a policeman, he asks to see their badge and asks to touch it. And as soon as he feels it's heavy, then he knows that they're a policeman. And of course, we practice that when we're out in the community. If we see a policeman and he engages in a conversation, he'll say to them, "Are you a real policeman? Can I see your badge? Can I feel it?" And they're very happy to do it, by the way. So in any case, so identifying the features, how important that is, that we don't just show a picture, that we can start to talk about, and maybe in the beginning, we'll just show a two-dimensional cartoon picture of a policeman and say it's a policeman and work on it in terms of that. But as the child begins to get these, we want to talk about what makes them different, that, we notice the hat and we notice, but not all policemen wear hats, right? So we want to make sure we show some pictures of policemen with hats and some without hats. Eventually, you can move to two-dimensional, or from two-dimensional to three-dimensional, because maybe you have little figures, and sometimes you can, there are stores that have these. Fisher-Price makes characters for the village, so you have a policeman and you have a fireman. Sometimes they have little figures that they already have that they've gotten from something, or they have a fire truck for something, or they have a police car for something. You can do it in that way. But then again, I think it's always important to go to what they call in vivo, in real life, whenever you can. And of course, always on our list of things to do is to make it as fun as possible. I really believe wholeheartedly that it's important that we instill in our children that community helpers are exactly that. They're in our community and they are there to help. That they not be afraid of a fireman, that they not be afraid of a policeman. A lot of times on television, they will depict people running from those kind of people. And it's very important for our children on the spectrum who see things often in a very black and white filter, that they identify community helpers as the good guys. We don't want to be in a situation where there's an emergency and our child is afraid of these people. So make it as fun as possible. I've mentioned before that in our community, and I won't say that this is the case in all communities, but if you call ahead to the fire department or call ahead to the sheriff's department and say, "Hey, here's the circumstance that we're dealing with, and can we come by and visit?" Normally, what I have heard and what I've experienced is they will say, "Yes, come by, but if we have an emergency, you realize that will take precedent." But there were two different occasions that we went to different firehouses so that he could see that it's different. It's not always the same. And he got the full tour of the firehouse. Oh my goodness, you guys, how much fun. And they dressed him up in the fire suit and they let me take 1,000 pictures and put him up into the fire truck and let him honk the little horn. He's been allowed to hold the fire hose while it's running. Oh my goodness. And they give them the little stick-on badges that they have. It's really a good time. Really, really a good time. I will say that when we took him to the police department, they have a big open house at our police department on Halloween, and they have a haunted house in the jail. They have one that's for little kids that's very Winnie the Pooh-ish, and one that's for older kids that's really quite scary. And that has always proved to be a little much for my son, but I will tell you that he thinks the jail is the scariest place there is, that it's all haunted house. This is not the worst thing for me, right? Jail is someplace you don't want to go. But when possible, I don't think it's ever a good idea to frighten our children into behaving, but we want to make it fun, make it as fun as possible. So take the time to get to know your local support police and let them get to know your child. That can never be a bad thing, right? Community helpers, it's a really important thing that we do to get our children either ready for school or to get them caught up if they're already in school so that they are safe in all environments and know who to ask for help. And these are just some of the suggestions to make it easier for us to teach these things to our child. Please teach community helpers. It's a great lesson. And by the way, this lesson is available in the skills program.